In December of 1945, a local farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Shaman was digging for shabak, a nitrate-rich soil used for fertilizer, and he was digging at the base of the Jabal al-Tarif mountain in Upper Egypt, when suddenly his shovel struck something hard. He brushed away the dirt and uncovered a massive, sealed jar, almost a meter tall. For a long time, Muhammad refused to open it. In local Islamic folklore, to break the seal of a buried vessel was to risk releasing a jinn, which is an ancient, volatile spirit of smokeless fire. But the thought of the buried gold won out. He raised his mattock and shattered the clay. There was no gold. There were 13 leather-bound papyrus books, and the story of how they survived is soaked in blood. Shortly after finding the jar, Muhammad became entangled in a violent local bloody feud, committing a revenge murder. Terrified the police would search his home and confiscate the ancient books, he handed them off to a local Coptic priest to hide. He had no idea he was handing over a theological nuclear bomb. 2 years before the Dead Sea Scrolls proved the Old Testament was fluid, his discovery in Nag Hammadi threatened to completely dismantle the New Testament because the text inside that jar contained a terrifying, suppressed version of the Genesis story. A version where the God of the Garden of Eden was the villain, and Adam had a demon for his first wife. If you've been following this series, you know my entire workflow is built around capturing the exact, gritty 1970s aesthetic of a deep dive investigation. But the reality is, I shoot this entirely by myself. There is no massive camera crew behind the desk pulling focus or adjusting lights while I dive into the ancient heresies. That's why this entire studio runs on NearStream. The VM20 is a cinematic powerhouse. I can control my exposure, focus, and framing straight from this remote without ever breaking the flow of a script. When you're digging into the darkest, most suppressed texts in human history, you need gear that just works, completely friction-free. Check the link in the description to upgrade your own setup with NearStream. Now, let's go back to Eden. We all know the story of Genesis. God creates a perfect garden. He places Adam and Eve inside it. The serpent tricks them into eating from the tree of knowledge. They're cast out for their disobedience. It is the ultimate story of human failure. But the books pulled out of the Egyptian dirt in 1945 told the same exact story in reverse. These texts belong to the Gnostics, a sprawling, mystical offshoot of early Christianity. The word gnosis means secret knowledge, and the Gnostics looked at the physical world a world full of disease, starvation, decay, and death. And they concluded that a perfect, loving God could not have made it. They believed the physical universe was a prison, created by an ignorant, arrogant, and jealous lesser deity called the Demiurge, or Yaldabaoth. According to their secret texts, the true, infinite God exists far above our universe in a realm of pure light. But an emanation of that God, a feminine divine figure named Sophia, which means wisdom, accidentally created a deformed, blind entity without her partner. Horrified, she cast it away into the dark. That entity was Yaldabaoth. Because he was blind, Yaldabaoth looked around the darkness, saw no one else, and declared, "I am God, and there is no other God besides me." To the Gnostics, when the God of the Old Testament demands worship and declares his jealousy, he is exposing his own ignorance. In the Gnostic version of Genesis, the God of the Old Testament isn't the true God. He is the warden of a material matrix, which means the Garden of Eden wasn't a paradise. It was a cage designed to keep humans docile and ignorant. And the serpent? The serpent was a messenger from the true, higher spiritual realm, sent by Sophia herself. The serpent offered the gnosis, the secret knowledge, required to wake up humanity, realize they were trapped, and escape. In 1945, we found the exact texts that Rome burned to stop this idea from spreading. One of the most explosive texts found in the Nag Hammadi library is the book called The Apocalypse of Adam. It is framed as the secret final words of the first man. Adam is 930 years old, lying on his deathbed, passing down the true history of the world to his son, Seth. But Adam isn't talking about his sins. He's talking about his lost divinity. In this text, Adam reveals a staggering secret. When humanity was first created, they were not physical. Adam tells Seth that originally he and Eve were beings of pure, unified light. And more importantly, they were spiritually superior to the God who created them. Adam literally says, "We resembled the great eternal angels, for we were higher than the God who had created us." Imagine the horror of Yaldabaoth, the creator deity. He builds humans as playthings, only to realize that a spark of the true God was accidentally trapped inside them, making his creations more powerful than he is. So what does he do? He attacks them. In the Apocalypse of Adam, the separation of Adam and Eve isn't a beautiful story of a rib becoming a partner. It is divine spiritual lobotomy. The Demiurge forcefully splits their luminous, androgynous spirit in half to weaken them, and then forces their divine sparks into heavy, dying, biological meat suits. Adam tells Seth, "Then the knowledge we had of the eternal God departed from us, and we served him in fear and slavery, and our hearts were darkened." This completely flips the concept of original sin. In the established church, were born broken, and you need the institution to save you. In Gnosticism, you are born a trapped god, suffering from amnesia. But Adam tells Seth there is a failsafe. The true God sent a hidden seed, a lineage of enlightened humans who would carry the Gnostics through history, untouched by the demiurge's control. Seth is the beginning of that lineage. Adam prophesies that the demiurge will try to wipe out the enlightened bloodline with a great flood, and then later with fire. But a mysterious figure known only as the Illuminator will repeatedly appear through 13 different kingdoms to wake the sparks up. It is a sprawling sci-fi epic disguised as theology. But the rabbit hole goes even deeper, because according to ancient Jewish mysticism, Eve wasn't even Adam's first partner in the garden. For thousands of years, rabbis and scholars noticed a glaring, massive continuity error in the book of Genesis. In Genesis chapter 1, God creates a man and woman simultaneously out of the dust. The text explicitly says, male and female, he created them. But just a few paragraphs later, in Genesis chapter 2, the story restarts. Adam is entirely alone. He is lonely. God puts him to sleep, opens his side, takes his rib, and creates Eve. So what happened to the woman in chapter 1 between the 8th and 10th centuries? A satirical, a highly controversial Jewish text called the Alphabet of Sirach finally gave the woman from chapter 1 a name: Lilith. According to this text, because Lilith was created from the exact same dirt as Adam, she viewed herself as his absolute equal. The conflict came down to dominance. When Adam demanded she lie beneath him and be subservient, Lilith flatly refused, stating they were made from the same earth. When Adam tried to force her, she committed an act of ultimate defiance. Lilith spoke the ineffable secret name of God, a massive reality-bending taboo. The moment the words left her lips, she grew wings and flew completely away from the Garden of Eden, abandoning Adam and humanity. God sent 3 angels to hunt her down at the Red Sea, threatening that if she didn't return, 100 of her demon children would die every day. She chose exile. She swore eternal vengeance, promising to prey on human infants in the night. But Lilith didn't start in the Middle Ages. The writers of the Alphabet of Sirach were pulling from a much older, much darker source. The lore of Lilith is actually an ancient game of historical telephone. If you go back thousands of years to ancient Sumer and Babylon, the exact same empires we talked about in the Watchers episode, you find the Lulitu. They were a class of ancient Mesopotamian wind demons, night terrors, succubi who preyed on men in their sleep and stole children in the dark. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, a demon named Siki Lil Lakifor literally lives in the trunk of a sacred tree belonging to the goddess Ishtar. Even the Essenes at Qumran were terrified of her. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, in a text called The Song for a Sage, the writers explicitly outlined an exorcism meant to banish monsters and demons and Lilith. The authors of the biblical lore took an ancient, terrifying Sumerian demon of the night and repurposed her as Adam's rebellious, goth ex-wife to explain away a plot hole in Genesis.
Dave, stop. Cut the feed. Pull the plug on the mixer. Are you telling me the snake was the good guy? God is the jealous middle manager running a cosmic terrarium? And Adam's wife was a 4,000-year-old Sumerian succubus who fled into the stratosphere because she wouldn't do the dishes? I went to Catholic school for 12 years, Dave. Sister Margaret never mentioned the demon ex-wife. We made macaroni crosses. We sang about boats. If I broadcast that the Garden of Eden was a hostage situation and human bodies are just meat prisons for divine amnesiacs, the Vatican is gonna send a Swiss God hit squad to my house. I'm unplugging the router, Dave. I'm moving to the Red Sea.
The Roman Empire in the 4th century reacted with pure panic. Christianity had transitioned from a persecuted underground cult into the official, state-sponsored religion of the Roman Empire. And to maintain control over a massive empire, you need a unified narrative. So in 367 AD, a powerful, ruthless bishop named Athanasius of Alexandria wrote a festal letter outlining the exact 27 books that were considered orthodox scripture, the exact list that would become the New Testament. In that same letter, he demanded that all secret, apocryphal, and Gnostic books be utterly destroyed. Why? Because they were a threat to the state. Think about the mechanics of power. If God is a distant, terrifying judge in the sky, you need an institution. You need priests, bishops, and a pope to act as your lawyers to negotiate your salvation. You have to go through the toll booth. But the Gnostics believed in the inner divine light. They believed you could achieve salvation entirely on your own by walking up and acquiring gnosis. You didn't need a church. You didn't need a priest. You didn't need to pay tithes. And to the Roman Empire, trying to unify its citizens under one rigid, controllable religion, independent, untaxable enlightenment was an act of treason. Right near where the texts were found in Nag Hammadi sat the Pachomian Monastery. Historians believed that the monks living there had been quietly reading and copying these Gnostic texts for generations, valuing their deep mysticism. But when Athanasius' death squad decree arrived from Alexandria demanding the books be burned, the monks rebelled. They gathered their forbidden library, wrapped the leather codices, sealed them inside massive earthenware jar, and buried them at the base of the Jabal al-Tarif mountains. They buried the books to save them from the Orthodox Church, and they almost won. They kept the secret safe for 1,600 years, until a farmer in 1945 swung a shovel. The Gnostics used the imagery of ancient Sumerian demons to explain the spiritual war inside the human mind. But as we move forward in the timeline, the concept of demons stopped being psychological. It becomes violently physical. Next time on The Missing Bible, we are tracking the origins of evil itself. How did the Watchers of Enoch evolve into the demons of the New Testament? We're going to look at the terrifying crossover between ancient demonology and modern phenomena. Sleep paralysis, shadow people, and the ancient entities that refuse to stay dead. This is The Missing Bible. If uncovering the Gnostic texts changed your perspective on the Genesis story, hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. I want to hear from you down in the comments. Do you think the Gnostic texts are dangerous heresy or the ultimate truth the Empire tried to hide? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay open, stay wondering, stay human.
In the red earth of Jabal al-Tarif, the shovel strikes the clay. A farmer finds a vessel from a world they cast away. 12 leather books of shadow, bound in blood and dried in sand. A theological nuclear bomb in a tired farmer's hand. And Adam had a demon for a wife before the sky turned black and dry. Wake the spark, break the glass, watch the orthodox world collapse. The garden was a cage, the serpent was the spark. We are God suffering from amnesia in the dark. You're the boss drawn sitting on a broken throne. You have the gnosis in the marrow of your bone. Genesis chapter 1 is a ghost the priest forgot. Male and female from the dust before the rib was even sought. Lilith stood her ground and she spoke the name of power. She flew from the garden walls to the night demon's tower. A Sumerian succubus, reaper parsed for the throne. She refused the subservience of the flesh and of the bone.
David, stop the feed, cut the wire, stop fast now. You're telling me the snake's the hero, explain to me how. Eden was a prison, bodies are just meat. I'm pulling the plug on the mixer, get me off the street.
Wake the spark, break the glass, watch the orthodox world collapse. The garden was a cage, the serpent was the spark. We are God suffering from amnesia in the dark. You're the boss drawn sitting on a broken throne. You have the gnosis in the marrow of your bone. Athanasius sent the decree, Alexandria's fire and sword, to kill the independent light, to keep the rigid word. They buried in the sand to save the human spark. 16 centuries of silence hiding in the dark. Next episode, sleep paralysis and shadows on the chest. The ancient demons of Sumer that refuse to stay at rest. Stay wondering, stay human.